People are continuing to join, but let's go ahead and get the program started so we can move forward and finish on time. My name is Yolanda Eisenstein. I am the president of the UIA Animal Law Commission, and I am doing the first of our series of webinars, AI and Animals. This one is focused on nonprofit organizations. And we are doing this with George Washington University Animal Legal Education Initiative, and they are our co-host, and they are supporting us with this webinar. We have Professor Joan Schaffner from GWU with us, and Claudia Delgado, without whom this would not be possible. She is our technology expert. So just a couple of housekeeping matters. We are recording this, and it will be posted on the GWU website and also the UIA website. So stay tuned for that. And if you have questions, please put them in the Q&A box. The format for today is we will do 2 pre-recorded videos, one by Ian McDougall and Kyle Behrend. And then the last part of the session will be questions and answers with Ian and Kyle joining us live. So just to introduce them, Ian McDougall is the Executive Vice President and General Counsel for LexisNexis, Legal and Professional Division of Relics Group PLC, and President of the LexisNexis Rule of Law Foundation, which he founded in 2019. He is also an adjunct professor at IE University Law School in Madrid. And I would like to acknowledge Ian's support of the Animal Law Commission. LexisNexis is a partner with the UIA, but Ian has gone above and beyond in working with us and supporting the Animal Law Commission in the work that we've been doing. So thank you, Ian. Also joining us today is Kyle Behrend. He is a seasoned nonprofit professional with more than 13 years of diverse experience, which, as I recall, also includes working at a farm sanctuary in Australia. So he does have some animal protection experience as well. He's the founder of NFPs.AI, whose mission is to empower nonprofits by opening access to AI. His vision is to equip organizations with knowledge and tools that they need to maximize artificial intelligence. And this includes cost cutting, saving resources, and increasing impact. And I will also note that in my first Zoom with Kyle, his whole backdrop behind him was cat condos. So Kyle also has a number of cats and dogs that live with him. Okay, with that, let's get started. We're going to do the 2 videos, then we will do Q&A. Be sure and put your Q&A in the box as we go along, and we will go live after the 2 presentations.
Hello. I'd like to start by giving you some background. Some of you may not be familiar with LexisNexis. LexisNexis provides legal research, information, decision tools, analytics tools and software to the legal profession in over 100 countries around the world with 11,000 employees. So that means although we are in most countries, we might not be in yours. We've been pioneering different types of artificial intelligence in legal tools for many years. LexisNexis, I'm proud to say, leads the way with technological innovation specifically focused on the legal profession. We are at the forefront of developing artificial intelligence as support tools for the legal profession, and I'll return to the expression artificial intelligence in a few moments. We're seeing this new technology driving once in a generation fundamental change in almost every aspect of work and life. The AI impact will be profound. I use the following analogy. The changes, especially the ones driven by AI, are like a huge wave in the ocean. You can either surf the wave and stay ahead of the change, or you'll be washed away by it. Those are the 2 choices, as AI will dominate how things can be done. So my point is, doing things in the same old way is no longer an option. In fact, it's a recipe for disaster. I believe those who are prepared to innovate and embrace what is becoming known as the 4th Industrial Revolution are the ones who will survive and prosper. I know that the world is not one identical collection of economies. In different parts of the world, different economies are in different circumstances, but it really is just a matter of time. Dinosaurs like me grew up seeing things on paper, in books, in files. Some of you may remember when the word files consisted of something that was paper. The generations that follow have been raised in a world where they've never been without the internet, a mobile phone, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and so on. Therefore, these generations are more open to technological innovation and will increasingly occupy senior positions in all the professions. Change will only accelerate. So now let me talk about what I mean by artificial intelligence. It's an expression that is easily confused and is now regularly misused. A leading test of what is artificial intelligence was introduced by Professor Alan Turing in his paper Computing Machinery and Intelligence in 1950. I'll paraphrase him. The Turing test was basically, can a computer imitate a human so that a human cannot say whether they're engaging with a machine or another human? You'll see that the test does not involve specific technologies such as machine learning, analytics, natural language processing, neural nets, etc. The test is only focused on the user experience. And we can use this as a check on the misuse of the expression by people who seek to describe complicated computer programs as AI. Complexity is not a test of AI. My chess game is complicated, but it isn't AI. Now, when Turing first asked that question, and until recently, it seemed more like a science fiction question than reality. But the answer to Turing's question is now yes. A computer can imitate a human so that the human cannot tell whether they're interacting with a machine or a human. And I hope you've noticed that this is a different question to can computers do things better than humans? That is not a test of whether something is artificial intelligence. It is possible for a computer to do things far, far better than humans without being artificial intelligence. In fact, computers and their associated mechanical bodies, robots, have been doing things in many countries far better than humans for many years. To be clear, robots have been with us since the beginning of the first industrial revolution hundreds of years ago. I went to visit the Tesla car factory in California, where the cars are almost entirely made by robots and computers. I watched as one robot took itself out of the production line because it had detected its tool had become blunt, and it wheeled itself off to get its tool sharpened by another robot. Robots and computers can work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, without rest or the need to be encouraged. They don't require reasonable treatment or fair labour laws. They won't go on strike or demand a pay increase. For repeatable production efficiency, humans cannot compete with robots. But that's not artificial intelligence. That is programming, or in human terms, following a repeatable and defined process. Such a machine doesn't need to know anything other than its process. It doesn't need to learn. It doesn't need to adjust to new circumstances or facts. And let me give you some disappointing news. There are many, many things in work process that is repeatable production work, even in the professions. The same documents, the same process every time. But real artificial intelligence is the technology that will fundamentally change the industries that have traditionally relied upon judgment, like law, medicine, science. These industries have not been greatly influenced by technology transformations until now. AI can learn. It can develop beyond its first state programming. Therefore, AI is a group of different technologies that lead to intelligent outputs. It's not a specific technology, although it includes certain elements that are always necessary. The recent development generating a lot of publicity is a huge advance in technology. This is generative AI. I now have to take a moment to explain what generative AI is and the difference with extractive AI. Extractive AI is an artificial intelligence system that extracts relevant data points from a library of data it's been trained on. It combines them, it makes links between them, and will use that knowledge to reproduce parts of the library in response to natural language questions. LexisNexis has used extractive AI for years in the services we provide to lawyers. Generative AI actually creates new content from materials it's been trained on. Instead of simply referring you to relevant information from the library as its answer, it will produce an answer of its own based on that data. An answer produced as a natural language response, as if you had asked a human. Write me an email explaining the law of negligence in New York, and it will draft, and I mean create, a new email. And I could say to it, thanks, make it shorter, and it will rewrite that email in a shorter form. Or I could say, write me a cease and desist letter to a company that's copying my intellectual property without permission, and it will draft a letter on that subject. But I'll go further. I could even say, thanks, make that draft more aggressive, just as you would engage with a human assistant, and it will draft you a more aggressive version of that letter. So let me take a moment to briefly explain how large language models work. For example, the recent development of AI. The large language models, and this is crucial, do not understand words and language in the sense understood by philosophers or psychologists. The large language model is a statistical modeling system that looks for patterns in language that are most often used, and then uses that to predict the likely next word. That's not understanding the words. That's simply understanding patterns of words and predicting the next most likely. It is not a search for truth and meaning. But this leads to the increasingly well-known problem of hallucinations, or in plain language, making up things that are not true. And this is because it's assessing probable words, not truthful words. Which leads me to the very important subject of open AI models against what I'm calling closed AI models. The open AI model goes out into the internet and vacuums up all of the word patterns it can find on the open internet. That means it collects all of the bias, errors, discrimination, abuse and nonsense that's out there. The more there is, the more the statistical model will be persuaded to reuse that language in response to a prompt. It's the equivalent of going into a bar and asking the first person you meet a question. You might get the right answer. You might get the wrong answer. You might get a very convincing wrong answer in clever, assertive language. Or you might not. But please don't trust it, except for the very simple and the very obvious. A closed AI model is where it has been trained specifically on a closed data set, such as the LexisNexis database, and its answers will reflect the content and quality of that database. Hallucinations are reduced to an infinitesimally small amount, and the answers are of high quality where the database is of high quality. You can ask the LexisNexis database who won the World Cup in 1970, but it won't know because it hasn't been trained. We must convince people that if you want to ask an expert question, you need to go to an expert, whether that's human intelligence or artificial intelligence. Of intelligent generation of new results that is the great leap forward. In addition, it learns, develops, it improves as it goes along. The importance of my point regarding closed or open AI models becomes especially important in the context of our relationship, or I should say AI's relationship, with the animal world. To be able to both protect and interact with animals in a way that is not harmful, it's crucial that such interactions are made on the basis of AI models that have specific training for this. As I now turn to some examples, keep that thought in mind. Remember, and I cannot overstate this, I said that AI is not involved in a search for truth. Neither does it currently have a moral core. As the technology currently stands, it tries to take what it knows and use that as a predictive tool in assessing what the next most likely thing to say or do should be. This necessarily means that if it's not specifically taught, it cannot have consideration for non-human interaction. It simply doesn't know. Unlike humans who, for example, can guess by circumstances or behavior when dealing with an animal, AI has to be taught. Without that teaching, there is simply no animal to consider. There are other specific issues, of course, but I'll just take a few moments to highlight some of them. Animal welfare in AI development. There are obvious ethical concerns about the possibility of animal testing involved in developing certain AI technologies, like neural networks and computer vision systems. This will require oversight on humane treatment of animals used in research. The impact of AI on wildlife. AI could disrupt ecosystems if deployed without proper safeguards. For example, computer vision monitoring of wildlife could stress behaviors. Autonomous vehicles and drones could pose risks like habitat disturbance. Replacing animals in work. I can, on the other hand, see a positive development. As AI matches or exceeds human capabilities, it may replace working animals in areas like bomb detection or search and rescue. This could impact animal use practices by, for example, removing the need to place animals in potentially dangerous situations. We could see the development of AI tools like automated wildlife monitoring, predictive analytics of poaching patterns, and detection of illegal wildlife trade, which could assist conservation efforts and anti-poaching initiatives. Overall, the development and application of AI has complex and nuanced implications for both the treatment of animals and their interactions with an increasingly technologicalized world. Responsible AI requires considering its impact on all living creatures and ecosystems. But I would ask everyone not to react like our ancestors to something new or unknown, that is, with fear. We should not view AI as a technology in search of a purpose. The way to view AI is to ask specifically what use cases are there for it and how to deploy them. To ask, how can I use AI, is the wrong way round, or putting the cart before the horse, to use another cliche. To be fearful of the technology per se is simply to misunderstand it. For example, an atom does not know whether it's going to be used to generate power or explode an atomic bomb. It is the use to which we put the technology that should be our focus, not the existence of the technology itself. To be very clear, you cannot uninvent technology. It is here, it exists, and it has the potential to deliver huge benefits as well as do damage. And that will depend upon us, not AI. So what is the impact? I believe, just like other technological developments, it's mixed, neither disastrous nor fantastic. To prove this, let me demonstrate with some historical examples. The first industrial revolution was the introduction of machines in the manufacturing process supported by steam-powered engines. The great cloth-weaving factories of the 18th century is an example. Agricultural processing was another. Powered mechanical robots. Those robots replaced outmoded skills, but they needed technicians to maintain them, and builders to build and maintain them. The second industrial revolution was electrification and the mass production line, which further drove urbanization as the agricultural economy was replaced by urbanization. That technology needed even greater supply chains, along with increasing numbers of people to support it. The third industrial revolution was the invention of the microprocessor. It replaced valves and mechanical computer mechanisms, enabling computers and huge quantities of data to be carried in your pocket instead of filling entire rooms. Microprocessor development roughly coincided with Moore's law, a doubling of processing power every 18 months. I can process more data on my mobile phone in 1 minute than NASA could in the entire Apollo moon project. Improvements in connectivity and processing power has set the conditions for a tsunami of technological innovation which is about to transform practically every aspect of our lives. But I say again, we have it in our power to train AI, to account for the animal world as well as for anything else. Whether the tool is used for good or evil will be determined by us. As with all previous technological leap forward, old skills go or change and new ones open up. Skills and roles that today I can't even imagine. I guess the Morse code operator hated the telephone, but think of the additional effort required from Morse code to phone. A simple electrical circuit in a few places moved to a phone in every place. The components had to be manufactured, creating a whole new supply chain with additional experts required to manage the infrastructure. The work of the UIA in acknowledging the impact that AI may have on the vast non-human occupants of this planet is both necessary, pioneering, and admirable. And I hope this little introduction has been of some help. Thank you.
Hi, and firstly, thank you so much for this opportunity to present to you. A special thanks to Ian for such a comprehensive introduction, Yolanda, and the George Washington University Animal Law Program. Let's jump right in. My name's Kyle Behrend. You heard a little bit about me before, but one thing I just want to point, and it's a quote that I start every one of these presentations with, is this is the worst that this technology will ever be. And I think that's really important to remember. A lot of us have interactions with AI and we don't get the responses that we need or desire for a range of different reasons. And my message is always, don't give up. See why the output isn't what you're hoping it could be. See if you can learn some techniques about prompting, which we are going to be talking about today, and try as these models evolve. It's almost like every week there's new advancements in the space. Just last week, Claude 3 came out, which is Anthropic's large language model, which most people are saying now produces better content like written stories and social media type posts than ChatGPT 4. So it's this continual cat and mouse game of which is the best large language model to use at the moment. And so please do give it a go and don't give up if you're not getting specifically what you want to begin with. So let's jump right into ChatGPT. And this is always what I encourage organizations to start with. It is a very comprehensive tool and it is incredibly powerful for just $20 a month. Now, there is a free version of ChatGPT and you get ChatGPT 3.5, which is a good version, but you're really lacking if you don't pay for that plus plan. And for $20 a month, I promise you it is the best $20 that you will spend, especially in a nonprofit organization. Now, you get a range of benefits. The first is you get the updated model, GPT-4 and GPT-4 Turbo at the moment. You get access to GPT Vision, which allows you to upload images. Now, you might wonder, what is the point of uploading an image to ChatGPT? And there's a few really interesting use cases for nonprofits. The first can be take a screenshot of your website. It could be your homepage, or in particular, one I like to do is your donation page, and actually ask ChatGPT to act as a web design expert and provide you with insights about how that website could be improved for optimization, for donations. And it'll provide you with some interesting opportunities for what you can do to increase the conversions of that website. Another one, which is one of my favorites with organizations, is to upload images of campaigns. They could be your own campaign or a campaign that you've seen online which you feel is effective. And ask ChatGPT, what is it about this campaign that makes it effective? Ask, what emotions will this campaign evoke in my viewers? We are all human. We all respond very much to emotion. And that is what we try and do with our campaigns, is evoke specific emotions to evoke actions in our audiences. And by leveraging AI's vision, by uploading this campaign and asking for tips and techniques to ways to improve it, to evoke a specific emotion, can provide some really interesting and insightful actions that you can take to increase the effectiveness of your campaigns. We also have Bing, which allows ChatGPT to search the web. We have ADA, Advanced Data Analysis, and this is really useful for nonprofits as well. You can upload a CSV file, a spreadsheet file, and ask for analysis on trends. And this can be really useful for donations or volunteer data that you collect over time, and ask to see, what are the type of trends that it can pick up? Can it populate it into specific graphs for you? So it's much easier for you to actually visually interpret this data, and very, very easy and much quicker than, sitting in an Excel file and trying to add these charts. One point I will make on this is that it's really important not to upload personal information to these large language models. A lot of them are trained on data that we are inputting to it. So never upload personal information or confidential data such as, donors' details, their email addresses, or how much they've donated. But if you were to have your donations over a specific time frame, say you've got donations over the last 12 months, and you've got a breakdown of single donations, recurring donations, and donations by campaign, I think that's a really good opportunity to upload that. You can anonymize the organization, you don't say who you are, and ask to identify specific trends and ways that that could be improved over time. We have access to plugins, which literally just got depreciated last week, so don't worry about that. We have DALL-E 3, which is the ability to generate images inside of ChatGPT. And again, this can be really useful to ideate specific campaigns or visual elements that you want to design. Another opportunity is for visual learners. Some people learn much better from seeing a visual representation of something than simply a text-based. So you can use AI to actually generate images based on text that you're working with. And the last addition is custom GPTs, and these are incredibly useful. You can train a custom GPT, it's like a custom agent, on a specific task with specific data. And what this does is, imagine large language models just have these expansive amounts of information. You can really do so much with it. But a custom GPT, you like refining it, same as a prompt. You're refining it to do a specific task and to do it really well. You can also upload PDFs or text files that it can actually reference while it's doing these specific tasks to actually make it even more effective. But this can be really useful to train a specific GPT on specific tasks, such as assisting with creating a Facebook post or even a LinkedIn post. Both of them are very different in how they're structured, the content, the format of them. And so it's better to have a custom GPT on each one of these social media platforms than to have just a generic social media GPT that does all of them at once. Custom GPTs are incredibly powerful, but they do require a bit of effort to get them set up. So we're not going to spend too much time on that today. The best way that I encourage organizations to look at these AI models is imagine them as a virtual assistant. You have the most knowledgeable, smartest assistant that you've had come and join your organization, but they need context to be able to provide the best output. So imagine you have an assistant that joins you today, and they don't know anything about who you are, your organization, your mission, your vision, your values, your communication style, or anything. And you ask them to go and write a fundraising email. They will go and write a fundraising email, but it's really not going to be what you expect or what you want. But if you were to train this assistant and say to them, this is our organization, this is our mission, this is our vision, this is the way we communicate, this is the types of communication that we do, and here's a couple of examples, and you then ask it to produce an output, it's going to be much, much better, much closer to what you expect. And that's the exact same with AI, large language models like ChatGPT. The more context we can provide them, the better the output. Prompting is the act of engaging with these large language models by providing an input to get a desired output. Now we're going to go through a couple of tips here. Large language models are amazing in that none of us need to learn how to code. We speak to them in the same way that we speak to other humans using natural language. Now, I mentioned before, it's about narrowing the view of this large language model. They have such a range of context, and the prompt is really about refining it to focus on a specific task and do it in a specific way. It is very much an iterative process. Seldom do I write a prompt and get it right, get the right output the first time. It does take a bit of time, especially if you're working on a prompt that you would like to reuse in the future, but the benefit definitely pays off in the long run. And structure is incredibly important. The way that the large language model interprets the data is very different to how we would when speaking to a friend. And there's a couple of tips. The first is one of my favorite, which so few people engage with, but it's to actually ask ChatGPT or the AI model to ask you the questions to give you the answers that it needs to create the output. So we'll go back to the fundraising email. If you were to say to ChatGPT, please ask me any questions you need to get the desired answers to help me write an effective fundraising email, you're going to get a list of probably around 10 to 15 questions of similar what we spoke about before. What's the target audience? What is the fundraising goal? Is it for a specific campaign? What's your organization details? What's the style of this communication? And from there, it will actually be able to generate much better copy than if you were to simply say, write me a fundraising email. So that's one of my most important tips when starting out with these large language models, is simply ask it to ask you the questions to get the answers it needs to provide the desired output. Reframe. One of my favorite techniques when I don't get the desired output is to actually explain what I was desired, why the initial prompt didn't give me that desired output. AI can then actually help you reframe that initial prompt, and you can learn along the way about what it is that you need to put into these prompts to get the output that you want. Examples is one of the most powerful ways to get a desired output. As I mentioned before, if you've got an assistant and you gave them 3 of your past fundraising emails and said, make me a fundraising email based on these examples, it's going to be a lot better at doing that because it has that context, that informationless pattern of what you like. These are pattern recognizing tools. So the more examples you can give it that relate to the instructions that are given, the better the output will be. Although I will put a caveat to that. Don't give it like 20 examples. I think 3 to 5 examples is a pretty good number. And always keep the human in the loop. This is a big philosophy that I adhere to. We are not about simply using AI and just taking that output and using it without checking it. Use this as a tool to get you a draft that's 80, 90% of the way there. But it's important for you as organizations, individuals, to check the output to ensure that it aligns with your values and what you're trying to say. Because as Ian mentioned before, there is going to be times that it hallucinates when it makes up content that doesn't exist. Or it simply could be better. It's important to reflect on this output, tweak it, change it, because anything that you put out into the public, whether it's AI created or human created, is a reflection of the organization. All right, so let's jump into a couple of challenges and misconceptions around AI. As I mentioned prior, a lot of people have a bad experience and then drop their usage of AI and never to return. The large language models are continuously improving, and as we improve the ability to prompt them, the better the output we will be. So, it is important to own the error. We are needing to learn a new way of communicating with these tools. And the better we get at that, the better the output we will have. Hallucinations, as we said before, sometimes it can make stuff up. So it's very important to fact check anything there. And there's a range of different models. And I think over time, we're going to start to recognize that different models are better suited for different tasks. We may use Claude for a specific task, ChatGPT for a different one, even Mistral for a different one. There's a whole range of these large language models available now. And over time, we will start using different ones for different purposes. Now, this is what I mean when I talk about how to structure a prompt. Now, AI works very, very well when you give it a prompt structured in what's called Markdown. Now, you don't have to get really, into the nitty and gritty of it, but the idea is that we use a hashtag to identify heading 1, 2 hashtags for heading 2, and then 3 hashtags heading 3, 4 hashtags heading 4. And we also use double asterisks to identify bolding. So this just helps the large language model in understanding what are the sections of the prompt and what is more important than others. Now, we also have different sections within here. We're starting with an act as section. We are asking the large language model to act as an expert in that field. If we are writing a social media post, we would like the large language model to act as a social media expert so that it references all of that type of material that it has to funnel it into that topic. We're providing context. Remember, I said before, it's so important to give it the information that it needs to provide the desired output and clear instructions. You will write a Facebook post that is 1 paragraph. You will not use emojis. Your tone will be optimistic and enthusiastic with a clear call to action at the end. The clearer we can be with our instructions, the better the output will be. And following that, you can provide a couple of examples which will increase the quality of the output. Prompting is a huge topic, and I did run a webinar simply on prompting. So if you're interested in having a look at that, you can go to NFPs.AI/webinars. All right, let's look quickly at a couple of other use cases of AI that aren't in large language models. We've got chatbots. Chatbots are getting incredibly popular for both front-facing, so like external for users or donors to organizations, and internal. And I've got to tell you a quick story. It relates to hallucinations and the importance of experimentation in this space. I was working with an organization last year, and they have this huge range of resources on their website. And I was like, this is the perfect opportunity to train up a chatbot that can sit on your website that users can engage with. And we trained it up, and it did incredibly well. It was amazing, except that sometimes it hallucinated a URL. So it would reference an article that simply did not exist on this organization's website, and they weren't comfortable publishing it online. And obviously I completely understood, and I said, well, let me just put it into your Slack channel. You can play around with it and see what you think over time. And they started playing with it in Slack. They actually found that by engaging with it and asking it to help draft social media content, it did an incredible job because it knew so much about the organization. It had access to all of these references that were on the website. It included URLs. And you know what? It still hallucinated. It still made up URLs along the way. But instead of this being a problem, it now was an opportunity, because this organization now saw potential gaps in their knowledge that then they could expand on and increase their resources. Not only that, they could ask the chatbot to draft up an outline or even a first draft of this article based on all of the other information that have been trained on. So it's a really interesting space. There's so much need for organizations to just start experimenting and trying it out, because we really have only just scraped the surface in what's possible with this technology. I think someone mentioned that even if ChatGPT were to stop advancing as it were today, it would take us about 2.5 years to fully uncover all of the use cases for it. So let's have a quick look at automations. This is possibly one of my favorite areas, and it's about where we can take data from one application to another and use AI to actually help along the way. So here is an automation that I developed for an organization that actually filtered emails that came into their inbox. And we used AI to firstly identify, is it an out of office email? And if it is, simply move that to a folder. And then categorize the email by different categories. Is it for a donation? Is it for an event? Etc., etc. And if it was, then it channeled off into different filters and either forwarded those emails to specific people, moved those emails to specific folders, or even used AI trained on their data to draft a reply. It never sent any replies. Remember, keep the human in the loop, but it drafted a reply that sat in that email ready for someone to simply review, edit, and send. This can save a huge amount of time. And this is the purpose of these automation tools. Save time, free us up to be able to do things that have bigger, higher impact, and that we're more passionate about. This is another example, a news summarizer. It takes information, it could be a Google News feed, and uses AI to actually extract specific data, the journalist's name, the date that it was published, the publication, and a summary of the article, and populates that back into a sheet. This can be really useful to monitor every time that your organization is mentioned in the news, or if you're following specific keywords that you would like to keep updated on. Another huge opportunity for AI is to help with reporting analytics. I mentioned before the tool ADA, Advanced Data Analysis, within ChatGPT, where you can upload CSV files and get analysis on donation data, volunteer data, identify trends, etc. This is definitely going to be a huge space, especially as organizations need to do more and more reporting for boards or grants, to be able to easily and accessibly analyze this data. Most organizations don't have a data analyst. I'm not a data analyst, but we can leverage AI to actually extract these information without necessarily having to have someone on the team with that skill set. Setting up an AI policy for your organization is an incredibly important first step for numerous reasons. Firstly, it allows everyone in your organization to bring their perspectives forward. There's a lot of ethical discussion around AI, about the implications of it, and I think it's important for everyone to be able to have their say. Secondly, I'm sure you'll find that there's people in your organization using AI that you don't even know. It's very important for your organization and your authenticity to be able to know what is being used, when is AI being used, and if that is being disclosed to your supporters or to the public. So having an AI policy is a fundamental starting point for your organization and a great opportunity to bring people together and start this conversation. I do have a template available on my website. I probably should get Ian to review it and get a bit of a legal perspective, but it is just a template. Do check with your internal HR team and a lawyer if need be. And where to from here? As I said before, I really encourage organizations to experiment with this technology. Start small. Pick a specific pain point that you're facing and ask ChatGPT how AI can help you with that specific problem, and slowly grow from there. It's amazing the different paths that we find AI taking us on, often to completely different use cases than we actually started for. And I also like to share that I think there is still opportunity for media when using AI, interestingly. Last year, our family was selling our house to move interstate, and we weren't getting a lot of traction. And I thought a fun idea would be to create an AI chatbot where people could actually ask questions to my house. The chatbot was the house, like how many bedrooms is it? Where's the best place to sit in the afternoon sun, etc. And this actually got picked up by a real estate publication in Australia and shared. So there's definitely opportunities if you use AI in a creative way to get media for them. Obviously, there is risks associated with that as well. There was a supermarket that had a chatbot, and it was starting to tell people how to create bombs based on ingredients that they had at home. So it's very important, as I said, to be mindful about anything that's externally facing and to thoroughly test it before letting it out onto the public. And that's why I strongly recommend, keeping the human in the loop and potentially not doing something that's highly risky, such as that. But starting small, experimenting is definitely the way to go. So if you'd like some more resources, I have the webinar recording. I also have access to 30 prompts that I've generated for not-for-profits and some other tools available at NFPs.AI. Please feel free to check it out. And if you've got any questions, I'd be delighted to answer them after this presentation, or feel free to send me an email. You can also find me on LinkedIn, very active there, continuously sharing prompts, automations that I'm creating, try and help nonprofits really build up this opportunity. I truly believe that nonprofits are perfectly positioned to benefit most from this technology. We are continuously under-resourced, understaffed, and have a lack of time. And AI helps in all of those aspects. It brings an expert to the field. It makes things a lot quicker, and it helps us be more effective. So I hope this has been a useful introduction about how AI can be used in your nonprofit organization, and look forward to hearing from you.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Kyle and Ian. If you could join us live now, we're going to open it up for questions. Excellent presentations, and we will wait and see if people have questions. In the meantime, I actually have a few questions that I would like to ask. So let's start with you, Ian. One of the things that you said at the beginning of your presentation was, if we don't embrace AI, we're going to be left behind and we can be swept away. Elaborate a little bit on that. I mean, what can happen if we aren't keeping up with AI, if we're not experimenting, if we're not using it, if we're not embracing it? What sorts of hazards are there?
Well, I'd like to answer that by actually analogy. To my mind, this is the biggest technological, or is going to have the biggest technological impact upon working life since the actual creation of the internet itself. And so now I would ask the question back in this way. Imagine now trying to run a business or a profession or whatever it is without using the internet. It's just, frankly, it's inconceivable. And And what would happen to your business if you simply didn't use any of the technology that's available? Imagine that you were using pen and paper and that was it. It's just it's the same kind of impact that we're going to see, where the AI models of different kinds will basically start to sort of infiltrate all aspects of our lives in all kinds of different ways, because of the tremendous benefits that, some of which you've heard already. And the point that I make here is that there isn't going to be a situation where we wake up on Monday morning and suddenly find an Arnold Schwarzenegger Terminator looking at us. What's going to happen is that we're going to see it gradually pervade all the different types of aspects of our lives where we interact with technology, very often where we have to interact with other people or companies or whatever the case may be. And so there is no way of avoiding it, really, because if you do avoid it, you're really damaging yourself. You're turning your back on the biggest technological innovation that we've seen in a generation.
Great. So, Kyle, do you have anything to add to that, or maybe specifically within the context of nonprofits?
Yeah, I mean, I think Ian did a great job. We've just moved and we opened the letterbox the other day and I got a yellow pages. I don't know if you've got yellow pages overseas, but like a list of all the company people's addresses, and it was like linking to the white pages, and it was tiny. And I remember growing up as a kid and having this, yellow pages and white pages. It was like this huge thick booklet. And I think it's such a similar example, isn't it? Because of the internet, now we've got Google businesses, and I think more so than even just being left behind, it's such a lost opportunity. If you're an organization that isn't using AI or starting to experiment with it, I think they will be looking back in a year or two and being like, kicking themselves and be like, oh, we should have started then, because it is a journey, it is a process. As I said before, we do need to experiment to find out all these use cases, and it is going to be the most influential tool we have in terms of changing the way we operate and work. And the sooner we kind of get into it and start playing with it, the bigger the benefits will be.
If I can just add something to that as well,
Sure.
Which is it's an important mindset, I think, to think about AI and all of its machinations as a tool to help you solve a particular problem or issue that you have. The wrong way to look at this would be, here's AI, how can I use it? Right? That's the wrong way around. The most effective thing that you can do is to find a problem or find an issue that could be improved, and then try to deploy technology, whatever the appropriate technology is, and AI is one of the tools of technology, in order to solve a particular problem or issue that you have, rather than hunting around to try to find some use for it.
Great. So, Kyle, I know everyone, and this is to both of you, everyone is sort of concerned with these hallucinations and AI making things up. And, I get the sense that some of us are thinking, it just makes me too nervous to think about this. And am I going to spend more time fact checking and trying to figure out if AI has, been factual, than actually utilizing it? So talk a little bit about that in terms of, how difficult is it? How big of a problem is it when we're using AI to sort through that and be comfortable with what we getting as far as the product?
Yeah, I think I've got two things to say on that. Firstly, as I mentioned before in the presentation, the importance of keeping the human in the loop. I just think we're not at that stage where we can deploy AI to just, run things and output without anyone checking it. I think it's so important that we do check, because there are these problems. I think as we develop, they are going to start finding solutions to this. There's already tools that have come around, like Perplexity, which leverages large language models, but also integrates web search to a higher degree than what ChatGPT does with its web search. And so it actually, really tries to bring through that connection of, internet-based data with large language models. Google also has this option within its Gemini. I think they actually, maybe they've taken off, but they had it where you could actually double check the large language model answer with Google search. So it would search that. And I think the second point I would make is this shows the importance of, bringing your expertise through AI. As Ian said, it is a tool that we can use. I was speaking to someone the other day and they asked, do we still need editors in this world where we have AI? And I said, yeah, definitely, but I hope they're using AI, because an editor that has this expertise on copywriting and the frameworks of, what to look for and how to edit, they can use AI for editing much more effectively than I can. Sure, I can, draft you a prompt about how to edit copy and stuff, but if they learned how to draft a prompt and brought their skills and expertise through that, they're going to then get such better output. And then they're going to know when they're seeing this output if something really looks a little bit odd, as opposed to, someone more general like me, not really having that expertise.
If I
Ian.
can say, and this kind of this webinar illustrates the really the complexity of the subject. I mean, I teach a whole course on this at the university, so we're trying to condense this down into a very small amount of time. But here might be a simple way of looking at this, which is that if we're talking about artificial intelligence as being a kind of an equivalent to human intelligence in the way that we sort of think about this. Well, let's think about how we deal with human intelligence. If we want expert advice, we go to an expert, someone who's been trained in a particular kind of field. At the moment, I'll exaggerate for effect, but at the moment, if I want to talk to one of the open AI models, it's as I've said before, it's the equivalent of walking into a bar and asking the first person you meet. Now, you might get lucky, you might get a good answer, yeah. You might get a drunken nonsense. You might alternatively, you might alternatively get convincing nonsense. And so, whereas of course, if you take, so we at Lexis, for example, have been producing AI for lawyers, yeah. So that means that it's been trained and focused down on a data set that is specifically for lawyers. So you go to an expert to ask a lawyer, you'd go to an expert AI to ask for technology. Ask for specific expert answers. And that's the way I think we will see this developing over time. We will see eventually this technology becoming kind of specialized, and the general, what I call open AI models, will be fun to use. But ultimately, there'll be people out there who are providing, as Kyle sort of spoke about advertising, for example, there'll be advertising specific AI models. There'll be accounting specific AI models. And so on as we see this develop. And so what I mean there is that at this particular time, as has been said just a minute ago, this is a tool to support what you do, not to replace what you do. It's important not to become a tech zombie, as I call it, and just receive the information as if you don't have to apply any thought to it. Maybe in 3-4 generations time we'll be in a different world, and we'll be as trusting of specifically trained AI models as we are of a calculator now. Maybe that's to come. But at this particular time, think of this as a tool that you must drive, that you must control, and that you must be responsible for the ultimate output.
Okay, so we just have a few minutes left, and just some closing thoughts. Kyle, of course, and Ian, we all worry about AI being used for harmful purposes, and in the animal protection world, we're thinking, we're going to see happy cows, grazing and being treated wonderfully, when the real story is that they're on a factory farm. So just talk a little bit about, are animal nonprofits going to have to be reactive? How do we deal with that? Kind of what do you see? Just give us some closing thoughts about what you see in the future. Kyle?
Yeah, this is a difficult one, to be honest. I actually shared on my LinkedIn yesterday that I came across this photo on Facebook. It got like 20,000 likes, thousands of shares, hundreds of comments, and it's of a kid that's built a statue of a dog, a French bulldog, out of water bottles. And people were like, this is amazing. Like, look at the creativity and stuff. And it was AI generated, but no one like picked up in the comments that it was generated by AI. And I was like, oh my gosh, like this is scary. And like it wasn't amazing. Like it wasn't the newest models in terms of image generation. And so we're definitely entering a phase where it's going to be a lot more difficult to identify what is, real versus AI generated. And I think, yes, definitely in the AI, in the animal movement, this is something that needs to be addressed. But globally, this is something that needs to be addressed. Thankfully, this doesn't sit on simply our shoulders to fix this problem or come up with a solution,
Right.
because I don't know what it is. But as I said, I think it's important for organizations to be transparent. Express, like, have that policy and decide what they're disclosing to their supporters about when and if they use AI, so that there is this open communication, so people do know about that. And I know there is organizations that are starting, trying to combat some of this. There is Freedom Food Alliance, which is really trying to tackle fake news and things, and they can actually leverage AI to discern this information, find out what in these articles was not true, and
Right.
create rebuttals to that. So it possibly may become this war of AI, where we've got people
Right.
using AI to try and
Right.
demean the movement, and then the
Right.
organizations trying to AI to combat that. So it's
Yeah.
it's an interesting space to kind of watch,
Yeah.
but that's why I think it's important we're all aware
All
of
right.
it, use
Yeah.
it.
So, Ian, final words from you?
Yeah, I just want to support that last point, because the analogy that I use, again, to use another analogy, I enjoy them, is the atom, right? The atom doesn't know whether it's going to be used to generate electricity or create a bomb, right? The atom is completely agnostic to these kind of outcomes. And so what we have to remember is that so is the AI. The AI can be used for good things and can be used for bad things. And how it's used is generally up to us. It's not a thing that kind of lives of itself and makes up some kind of moral decisions. It doesn't understand the language that it's
Right.
using. It doesn't understand the consequences. It doesn't know these kind of things. It's a statistical language predictor model. And that's what it is. Now, it's very clever, and it's taking a huge amount of processing power in order to make it real. But the important thing is that the ethics of its use are things that are down to us. And that's really what we need to remember. And that comes back to being in control. It comes back to setting up ethical guidelines. Of course, the bad actors won't follow ethical guidelines. So you're right, we may end up in this kind of arms race of AI. But so do we in any other kind of technology. I mean, I put something out on LinkedIn the other day, which was sarcastic, but basically said, people are criticizing the fake, things that AI can produce. How I long for the good old days before AI, when everything on the internet was true. And that's
Absolutely.
same point.
Yes. Okay, well, we're out of time. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Claudia, Joan, Kyle, Ian, this was a terrific program. And stay tuned, everyone. We will have another one coming up soon. Thank you. Have a great day.